Great evening. My name is Klarke Foreman, and I'm a student at Houston Christian University. And before we get started, I just kind of wanted to establish the tone of this space. But since we're meeting virtually today, for the record, can you confirm that you're currently in the state of Texas and share your current location?
I am in Texas, Pearland, Texas, to be exact.
Okay, perfect. So before we get into anything personal, actually, before we move on, thank you so much for sharing that. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, I wanted to briefly go over your rights around around confidentiality, so you know exactly what to expect. You know what this space is and what it isn't. So one way I like to think about this is, in a nutshell, what goes on here stays here. I am not allowed to share any information past this space. Um, and so, yeah, whatever you choose to discuss will not go outside of this room. So this is your time for you to receive what it is that you need, and I'm here to support you along the way. However, there are limitations to confidentiality. So, um, in the state of Texas, uh, it does outline a few situations where confidentiality has its limits. If any of these situations come up, I'm legally required to break that confidentiality in order to protect your safety. So, number one, the first is harm to yourself or somebody else. If you believe you're at risk or seriously harming yourself or another person, I'm required to report that the appropriate support system can step in. And the second is abuse or neglect involving children, those with disability, and the elderly. So if I learn that a child or an elderly person, or again, somebody with disability is at risk of being abused or neglected, Texas law requires me to report that as well. And of course, the third situation would be court orders or legal requirements under Texas state law. So if a judge illegally orders access to records, I will have to comply with that request. But outside of all that, again, what you share remains confidential. So my goal for this is for this to feel safe and respectful, where we can just kind of sit things down and work through what's going on together. So before we get started, does this make sense, or do you have any questions?
No.
Perfect. Well, um, before I ask you your first question, I also just want to make my role clear. It's going to be different from a traditional counseling session. For this intake session, I'm just going to be getting to know you. So I'll be asking a few more structured questions based on the form, just to kind of gain more insight on what's going on. And I just want to work to understand the story, and and just looking at you from a holistic standpoint. So, from the information that you already shared, it's clear that you've done a lot of meaningful work already. I see that you've leaned into prayer, self reflection, and personal study as a way of navigating some difficult relational dynamics, which is great. Kudos to you. So, I just want to simply understand your life experiences. So, with that in mind, what brings you in today?
Um, well, I have adult children, and our dynamics, of course, have changed over the years. And it just seems like the relationships are getting harder to maintain. And what I'm realizing now is it's either no relationship or it's like it's very surface level. And I find myself reflecting a lot on if it's my fault and feeling guilty that maybe I didn't do more when my children were younger to nurture, so that this would not be where we are now.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds tough. That sounds, especially transitions are always a challenge. So I just want to hear more. Like, what does harder look like for you? I know you mentioned um, it's getting harder to navigate these relationships. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, I say harder because the mom in me want to always just kind of dive in and like want to confront. But when I've tried to do those things in the past, then it always results in like a major disconnect or blow up to where it
Mm,
never it never yields the results that I hope would
mm,
have. So at this point it's like I don't know what to do because it feels like if I don't do anything, it won't get any better,
mm,
because although my um there's two parents, it doesn't seem to bother my husband at all, right? So for me though, it bothers me to where it just feels like you have three children that you've been dedicated your whole life to, and now it feels like they will be totally fine when not having any relationship.
mm. That's hard. That's very heavy. That's very heavy. And again, I appreciate you for being open with what's going on. Um, with that being said, I know you mentioned that you're having some sleep challenges, and it makes me wonder if, the relationships with your child, if the relationships with your children are contributed to that. So, and you rated that around a 7. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your nights have been like recently? Does it have anything to do with your relationships with your kids and the challenges with that? So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think it contributes because what happens in the nighttime is after, because I still work, but I work in the home. Um, and I think it's when that in that quiet time when you finally lay down. I know for me, it's like even though I lay down and turn the lights off, it
Mm,
just seems the mind is racing. So you have now I have this time for all the thoughts and stuff really with no distraction are there, right? And I
mm,
can't lie about it. My number one concern is my family dynamic, not my work, not my, everything else. It's like if that's not working, because I'm always constantly trying to figure out what do I need to do next, or what can I do, or what didn't happen, what did I contribute to, and
yeah.
more about asking myself, what did I do to contribute to this, and how can I fix it? Because maybe I can't fix. Well, it's not maybe I can't fix anyone outside of myself, but I can be better. I can't. It may not ever change if I don't find out how I contribute to it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It's like the time that's designed for you to wind down. It's hard because the things that bother you during the day, uh, it's like they're going against each other. And yeah, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times sleep struggles can absolutely connect to what's happening emotionally or relationally during the day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Because during the day I have work to like put that at the forefront, and that's well then I'm not doing that at night. So it's almost like
mm,
that's a work is a nice diversion
mm,
sometimes away from what's actually going on in the personal life. So yeah.
mm, yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You also shared in your form that you experienced the loss of a friend in 2024. So you're carrying a lot. between 2024 and 2026, and we're not even that deep into 2026. And as time progresses, we'll talk a bit further about this. And to think about loss, it can shape us in really deep ways. So it sounds like a double grief from losing your friend in 2024 while also grieving the relationships with your children. But more specifically about the loss of your friend in 2024, what has that experience been like for you?
It was actually a loss of two close friends in the same year, in a
Oh, yeah.
matter of months of each other. Well, within a year of each other, and um, it was really tough because it was there weren't necessarily, you have some friends that is the whole family's friend, right?
Mhm.
So when the loss occurred, then everybody is supporting each other because it's been a loss for everyone. In these particular cases, they were my close friends. So I felt like the people around me who knew and loved me, it was like, oh, sorry, and I didn't get the support that I wish I would have gotten from my loved ones in
Mhm.
that. Um, so I almost felt like I was grieving alone and almost silently because I knew I wasn't going to get what I needed from them because they didn't feel the loss like I did.
Mhm.
So it felt like it was like a private grief, you know. And then a, a, a grief, but then also it's like on top of that, it's like, how could you not see or care that about what this means to me, So
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that.
yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. I know I keep using this word over and over again, but that's heavy to
Hmm.
carry that. I want to ask, where are you with that grief today?
Well, I mean, I've managed it because I've had time to sit with it, that they're gone, So I'm managing. I've managed life without them, but it still hurts when I think about it, of course. So yeah, but it heavy nonetheless because I did feel like nobody else knew how I was feeling or wasn't even concerned about what I was actually feeling. So
Mhm.
that is definitely made it heavier,
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm so sorry about that. Um, I also noticed something really meaningful on your intake form, how you describe having a very strong relationship with your father. I saw you
Mhm.
rated it a 10 out of 10, which that's phenomenal. So talk to me more about your relationship with your dad and tell me like why was this relationship so significant in your life?
I put a 10 because of what he meant to me.
Mhm.
It wasn't like me and my dad didn't used to have all these heart to hearts, but he was always there.
Mhm.
Um, and always showed his love, and his presence just meant everything to me. And so yeah, it was, if I ever needed him, he was there,
Mhm.
Um, it was just, and then on top of that, he wasn't even my biological dad. He adopted me. So that made it even more special because I wasn't his biological child, but to show up for me like that and to love me like he did, that's 10 out of 10 for
That's
me.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. I can't wait to dive more into that. That is powerful. Yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes the supportive relationships in our lives, show they. What am I trying to say? The supportive relationships in our lives shape how we navigate the harder seasons.
Mhm.
And I wonder, like, how has your relationship with your father influenced how you approach, say, for instance, the challenges with your children or the conflict that you experience now?
I don't know. I think if anything, it makes me want so bad to be have that kind of presence in their life because
Mhm.
I know how much it meant to me. So on the other side, it's like I know how much that means to me. And I look at them like, how could that not mean that much to you? You know what I'm
Right,
saying? From the
right.
kids' standpoint, it's like, do you know how much value, or do you know one day this won't be here? Like, and I know what that feels like too. So it's like, you know, and I can't force that on them, but it's just that I know how much that means. I'm not
Mhm.
my dad, but I'm what I do have, I want to be able to give it. But it's like you can't force feed it. But
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love how it's always good to hear like how our relationship with our parents have shaped us and how, we kind of just see that playing out in real time with the relationships outside of that. And it
hmm
just sounds like family is really important to you, especially since it was beautifully exemplified by your dad. I'm happy to hear that, but I'm also sad to hear that you're navigating these challenges with your family. Um, just a couple more things while we still have a little time left. You also mentioned that you spent time engaging in prayer, self-reflection, and personal growth work. So it tells me that you are very serious and intentional about your healing. So what have those disciplines, how have that contributed to this current season of your life?
how is that contributed to what?
Those disciplines, prayer, devotional, your personal growth work that you've been doing.
Okay. And what was the question though? How has that how has that helped me
Yeah,
doing
like
those?
what are they like? What is your relationship with those disciplines?
Oh, yeah. So just to give it I hadn't always my prayers at first when I realized there were problems was focus on them, right?
Mhm.
Um, praying for them, and I was looking for books that was focused on the kids and what they may be going through, and then then I would read look for self-help professionals via podcasts and stuff like that who may be speaking on family issues and all that. But then in that, I started realizing how I need to focus on me, like how I contributed to those things because I cannot control what happened. I don't want to always be them, 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 them. They did this, they did that, that. But maybe look at me, and that kind of eased, lifted some of the burden because um, when when you place expectation on others and when you don't get it, then that leaves you disappointed and all that. But I can work on me and see some results, some growth and all that. So I can get something out of that. Right. So yeah, that I don't know if that's what you're asking me, but just setting up actual intentional prayer time. Um, focused if I am going to study something or if I'm going to read something, then I commit to doing that, whether it's a few minutes a day, X amount of minutes a day or week. I do better with a structured help and not waiting till, you know, I'm knocked off of my rocker or uh, experience some form of rejection or emotional letdown, then run to it because now all my emotions is involved in it and not necessarily the clarity to take in what I'm actually trying to get out of it.
Right. 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 Yeah. And since faith seems to be an important part of your life, your relationship with God, I love to understand that even a little bit deeper. So, how would you describe your relationship with God right now, your spiritual life, especially in the middle of everything that you're navigating?
Um, I've God has been the only constant thing that hasn't let me down.
Mm,
Um, and then I can go to him and when I said in the beginning, like when I try to confront when I'm feeling away, when I would go to my kids and it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, God doesn't do me like that. Like I can go to him and uh, say whatever, like how I'm feeling, up or down or whatever, and I can leave it right there. So
mm,
that's been like the real comfort and growth in that in some kind of way, whether it's through reading, through worship, through it could be through another individual. He always sends those subtle messages to let me know that he hears me. So he's been my constant,
mm,
and I realized that I needed to put my relationship with him to the forefront because the relationships with the family helped me see that that was out of order.
right.
And maybe that's why I was experiencing a lot of the disappointment that I was experiencing because of what I wanted to get from these um, relationships here. I probably needed to be focused on the relationship here more
Mm,
so and let that fill my cup, right? So I'm trying to lean more into that, and that makes me less disappointed when I don't get what I feel I should get from the people around
right. Oh, I love to hear that. I love to hear how your relationship with God keeps you grounded. And yeah, God can really be, it's ultimately the major constant in our lives that can get us through those challenging times. And I really appreciate your openness today. You shared a lot of meaningful parts of your story, and I don't take that lightly. So I'm really excited that you trusted me with that information. I'm also excited to see you show up for yourself in this in this moment in time in your life specifically. So from what I'm hearing, you've been navigating several layers at once, from the tension in your adult child relationships, the emotional impact of losing not one but two of your friends, um, and also on top of being overlooked and alone in that grief, while also carrying the hat of being an employee at work. And so, and the way all of that has just been affecting things like your sleep and your overall sense of peace. That's a lot. And at the same time, it's clear that you've been very intentional about seeking growth through prayer, reflection, and now therapy. So I'm really excited about that. So it just really tells me that you're somebody who's genuinely trying to understand your life and move toward healing, and that's something very commendable. So shout out to you for that. And
me.
since the reminder, sure, just a reminder, since today was mainly about was gathering helping me gather a fuller picture of your story through the um, from a holistic standpoint. And this is just a great foundation and a starting point for, just ultimately understanding the areas that might need the most care and attention moving forward. But before we wrap it up, I just have one more question. I know that there have been so many, but how are you feeling after talking through some of these things today?
Say that again? You kind of cut out.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Hmm.
How are you feeling after talking through some of these things today?
Um, I feel good. I mean, I'm hopeful, because I'm committed to doing my work because that's all I can do. So I feel good that this is just another step that I'm committed to the work. So yeah,
Well, that's good news to me. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really glad you were willing to come in and again begin this conversation. So just to let you know, for our next steps, we would normally continue exploring some of these things that came up today, especially around your relationships, how you're processing grief, and the ways to support you from an emotional and spiritual standpoint. So essentially, your emotional and spiritual well-being. So, but for now, I just want to thank you again for your honesty and for trusting this space. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with you next time. So, other than that, that will conclude our time together. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
same here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.